Okay.
Thanks so much for coming on our show today, Eli. We're really happy to have you here with us. And if you could
Mm.
just kind of give people a little bit about your background, I think that would be helpful.
So I'm Eli Knight, and I do primarily jujitsu. I teach and train martial arts, and I have for most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
going on about 25 years or so now that I've been training. And I started with more. Let's see. It started from everything from Taekwondo to Japanese style jiu-jitsu to Filipino martial arts, Muay Thai, Tai Chi for a period of time. I've done a lot of things, Indonesian Silat. But the thing that's really resonated with me more than anything and speaks to me more than anything is jiu-jitsu, particularly from the Japanese via Brazil paradigm. And so now I teach at my home base academy of Three Rivers Martial Arts in Kentucky, and also do a lot of traveling to go do seminars and different kind of training events and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's basically my background as far as anybody really cares about me, So
Yeah.
and I do a lot of online stuff. I have a YouTube channel that is where I get the most exposure probably from people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then from social media things, I try to put a lot of like online training, and I put a lot of my classes that I teach up on like Patreon and things like that. So that's basically it for me.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's so exciting how you've been able to grow your YouTube following so rapidly. What are you
Mm.
at now? 150,000 or
I
more
think
followers?
almost 140, almost
Mm,
140,000, I think. So it's
yeah.
yeah, I've been very fortunate and extremely grateful for the growth that it's happened. It was funny because I've had this YouTube channel since YouTube was basically a thing, and so it technically speaking, I've had it a long time, but the growth
Mm-hmm.
only happened in the past probably 2 to 2.5 years, is whenever the channel really started to take off. Because about 2 to 2.5 years, it was sitting around 5 or 6 thousand subscribers, and then
Mm-hmm.
now to be 140,000, it's
Yeah.
it's just it was kind of startling to me. But I'm like I said, I'm very grateful. I'm trying to keep doing the best that I can at it. I decided a long time ago that I never wanted to really leave my home base academy. I don't own the academy, and people always ask me and have always asked me, do you have any desire to like go start your own school, your own kind of brick and mortar facility? And my answer has usually been no. Like I don't I don't really want to move away to start one, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to compete with the academy that I teach out of, where I'm the senior supervising instructor. So
Mm-hmm.
I figured, you kind of if I'm going to grow where I'm planted, then I'm going to have to figure out kind of creative ways to do it. And so that's why I've tried to branch out and go travel more and to do more online like that.
Yeah. And it must be really gratifying that you can reach people in all places of the world who maybe don't have access to a jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
gym and
It blows me away. I get messages every day from people all over the world, and it's one of those beautiful things about social media when it functions the way it's supposed to, is that when people see a video that I put up and they send me a message to tell me they appreciate it and that they learned from it, and that they watch my videos to train along with because they don't have access otherwise. So whenever I get messages like that from like India or from Africa or from Switzerland, I mean, it's really a gratifying thing to in that
mm-hmm.
regard. And so it makes me feel very careful, and that I need to be very responsible with what I put out and the message that I portray to people, and that I don't mislead anyone. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, what a great thing to be out there in the day of, harmful social media effects and different things like that, to have a great reason to get online and probably be a good influence to youth as well as adults and families. Yeah.
yeah, I try to be as positive as possible with it, and try to be as responsible as well, because like there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of garbage and there's a
Yeah.
lot of misleading information. There's a lot of dangerous things that people put online without any kind of thought of the repercussions that it's going to have to the people that are seeing that kind of information that don't know any better. So,
Mm-hmm.
I try to frame things the right way and try to, be as careful as I can with the information that I present to people.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Now tell me, how did you start into martial arts? Did you get into it at a young age, and what was the reason?
Um, like most kids, I was always fascinated with it. Growing up, and I was born in the mid '70s, but so like my childhood was the '80s and up through the '90s, and being fascinated with martial arts movies, of course, anything from Kung Fu Theater up through like Van Damme and Steven Seagal movies, and just
Mm-hmm.
all of it was interesting, like it is to most people. I never really did martial arts as a kid. I took some karate classes for a short period of time. We didn't really have a lot of access to a lot of different martial arts in the area that I lived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I started with Taekwondo, which was about the only thing available to my knowledge. I continued with Taekwondo for almost 2 years. In that time, during the later part of it, I transitioned to, I met a teacher that I actually um, currently still work alongside him now. And his name is Jason Hawkins. And he was doing what I wanted to be doing that I didn't even know. And he was
Mm-hmm.
cross training all kinds of different things. From that man, I learned so much. And going from being his student to more of a peer role. I still consider him my teacher in a lot of ways to this very day, but he he taught me a whole lot, and he really opened my mind, and really expanded my perspective on martial arts. And so I'm always want to like make sure that I always mention to everybody how grateful I am for him. And I literally he's about 50 feet away from me right now, like teaching a lesson. So
Oh, cool.
I've
Yeah.
been very fortunate to maintain that relationship and work alongside him over the years. But with him, I started training in jujitsu, but it was a little more like a traditional style of jujitsu. It was before this is actually before the UFC came out, and Gracie
Mm-hmm.
Jiu-Jitsu became a very popular thing. And once it did, we started to study Gracie Jiu-Jitsu under Hoist Gracie, and we would go wherever we could to train with him, while still staying residents of Kentucky. And so, we would go see him at seminars, we would go to camps, we would travel to see him and train with him. Then we would come back and we would train the information amongst ourselves. And we did this for years, and eventually became a training affiliate under him. And we still maintain the relationship as a Hoist Gracie network to this day. So all of my rank has come directly from Hoist. In the meantime, I'm with Jason. I was still, like I mentioned, other martial arts that we were training in, as far as like Filipino martial arts. Jason is big into traditional Chinese martial arts as well, as far as Wing Chun. He's a instructor under Dan Anasanto with Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts. So I've always got a constant resource to that, even though I don't train that as regularly as not regularly enough to say that I train in those things to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a kind of constant resource of that, so it's been really helpful. So I try not to. I've never been one for being. I appreciate the traditionalism of traditional martial arts, and I really have a deep like appreciation for all things martial arts, but I've always been kind of opposed to being too stuck in the tradition as to not branch out to other
Mm-hmm.
things, and to see how exploring other avenues and other styles and systems can enhance your practice, because there's a lot of cross-platform application across different martial arts. And whenever you see that, to me, that points out validation more than it points out any kind of conflict. If I see something that pops up in an Indonesian style, versus a Chinese style versus a Japanese style, I don't immediately look for, well, who did this first and who does it best. It's, to me, validation of, it's validation of that is a practical thing, that's a necessary thing, that's an important thing. So that, like I said, I think that has really helped to color the approach that I take to teaching to this day too. I want to help get the best information to people for what their needs and their purposes are.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a minute about something that is near and dear to my heart as well, but just how martial arts can have an impact on our mental health. And, like my own brother actually committed suicide several years ago. And it's
I'm
something
sorry.
that, yeah, thank you. It's something that, is still a battle for for many close members of my own family. So I don't know. I know Eli, or I'm sorry. I know that JD was talking about last week in our interview how he had been involved with some organizations to try and bring awareness to that, him as a veteran and stuff. I don't know if you've been involved with that as well, but also I thought you might be able to speak a little bit to your youth and what some of the struggles were like for you and how martial arts has helped you.
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing this long enough and worked with enough people as a student capacity and as training peer capacity to really see a lot of benefits that that on so many different levels of mental health, emotional well-being that are pervasive in martial arts study and practice. Speaking particularly for myself from the jiu-jitsu side of things, I think that any physical practice can have, when tempered the right way, can have a very significant impact on people's emotional health and well-being and their mental health and well-being. I think that the mind-body connection is an extremely important thing that is often overlooked especially in traditional modern medicine. I think that if you go into a lot of times, unfortunately, if you go into to see a psychiatrist or psychologist, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think a lot of times they want to throw medicine at things a little too quickly. I think that without you're treating things from the back end a lot of the time. You're rather than preventative things like health and exercise, watching your diet, watching your nutrition, watching your physical practice, those things can be a lot more beneficial. So from a personal perspective, I know that was the main thing that the whole reason I got into martial arts when I did. Like I said, I was always fascinated with it, but I didn't have a real desire. I was kind of dragged to my first few classes, honestly, and then I got immersed into it. But what had really happened to get me involved in the first place was, excuse me, is my sister, whenever I was around 13 years old, 14 years old, my sister died in a car wreck. And that had a very traumatic effect on me because we were very close. Like I was closer to her than anyone else in the world. And so when that happened, I was, sitting to really, beyond, it was obviously a depression. It was like an existential kind of depression. I didn't know what to do or what to make of anything. And so when, I had a couple of friends that kind of took me into their martial arts class whenever I was able to function at all. And that gave me kind of an outlet. It gave me something kind of physical to do. I wasn't terribly physical aside from like skateboarding at the time. And, that helped me in a lot of ways. Then, especially whenever I met Jason Hawkins and I started training into the other arts, it got very, you can get into almost kind of a meditative practice with it. It's like a physical moving meditation. Because my head was in no condition to sit and try to meditate or try to reflect on anything. I wanted something to quiet down the voices, in my head. I wanted something to calm me and to still me. But that wasn't going to come from being calm and still for me. It was going to come from being active, from getting out and moving. In jiu-jitsu, especially, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it seems kind of counterintuitive that this like aggressive sport can actually do that, but it actually does make you feel more calm and have a better mindset about things. Maybe it's getting that aggression out in a more disciplined way, or getting,
I've had to think about
that energy.
Yeah, I've had to think about that a lot too. Particularly with combative arts, with combat sports and combat arts. What it is that you have to be in the moment. I think that one of the most healthy things you can do for yourself psychologically or mentally or emotionally is to be present in the moment, not with your head somewhere in the clouds or thinking too much about the mistake that you made or the worry about what you're going to have to deal with later. It's about the immediacy of the moment. And for me, I haven't seen anything as good for doing that as combat sports and combat arts. So with the practice of jiu-jitsu, I tell people, you suffer your karma immediately. You deal with that thing in the moment, because you can't let your head be somewhere other than this person who's on top of you trying to choke you. If you do, you're going to suffer for that immediately. So that really draws you away from any of those outside kind of noises and distractions and worries and concerns, and really puts you present. And there's such a healing aspect of that practice has to offer that you can't really find through other means. You can find it deceptively. You can drug yourself. Because that's what drugs do a lot of times. Is it numbs. It has like an anesthetic property, but all that's doing is really just masking the pain. It's masking the discomfort. It's masking the distress that you're feeling, and it compresses it. So when it does resurface, it's almost going to be worse, or it is going to be worse. So dealing with things in a positive, healthful way like that is very important. So for me, I mentioned about my sister. That was one of the most difficult things that I had to deal with in my life. The other aspect of it too, as far as like just trauma that it's helped me deal with, is that growing up, I for a number of years, I saw my mother in an abusive relationship, and that was a really hard thing for me to practice, because I had this kind of identity crisis. I was a kid, but I was a boy. I was male. I'm supposed to be strong. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to have some kind of sense of power or strength about me. And so to be put in kind of one of the most helpless situations that I can imagine, as far as, I think it's tantamount to being abused yourself, is watching the person who is your number one caretaker being abused and being hurt, and feeling helpless to do anything about that, because it's like, here's this person who's taking care of me all my life. And if she, how do I take care of her whenever, she's in this helpless situation? And so that was a difficult thing for me to process. And I'm sure that that's had lasting repercussions over the years, over my entire life. So, but again, that's been another thing too, that the sense of empowerment that's come with training at martial arts has given me that back. It's given me some kind of identity of like, I know how to protect myself now. I know how to protect my loved ones now, and so that was one of the most beneficial things as well, along with that. As far as people who have suffered trauma, who suffer from depression, who suffer from, to a degree, mental illness, that which is an umbrella term that can carry a lot of different implications to it. So that's a difficult thing to just kind of blanket statement it. But I think that there are benefits to training in martial arts and training combat arts and combat sports that can really help. I've seen it help people with autism and Asperger's as well. It's a little bit of a tangential concept, but it is something that's really interesting. That I've worked with several people, kids and adults, that have autism and Asperger's. And a lot of times that's a very sensory thing. There's a sensory and tactile component to that that's very difficult for them to function in quote unquote a normal capacity as far as other people do. So the tactile nature of what we do in jiu-jitsu is very it has a lot of healthful properties to that. So for somebody who's very touch sensitive or touch phobic, it can be a very very moderate thing to introduce them to that and kind of help them get over a lot of those sensitivities. With people who are very weak, people that are very frail, people that are very just everything hurts them, and they're very soft people. It has kind of a kneading process, like a KNEAD, like kneading process. I feel like, because if you're going to toughen someone up, there has to be some harshness introduced to the environment. Too much is going to break that person, physically or psychologically. You can't introduce something in too traumatic of a situation that's gonna damage the person. But our bodies physically grow because of difficulty, because of the strain that we put on them when it's introduced in the right capacity. There's a difference between, if I lift weights, I could lift weights in a way that can make my muscles and skeleton and tendons and everything stronger. I could also do it irresponsibly and damage my body, so it's kind of along those same lines. So it's kind of part and parcel that the training needs to be regimented. It needs to be followed closely, and you need to work with a qualified instructor to really help guide you through that, that can really understand your needs and that can really introduce things to you that you need to have happen. But there also has to be other components too. It's not a complete panacea that's going to like cure all your aches and pains and woes, and so
Right.
you have to supplement that with other aspects of your life that are conducive to your training.
Yeah, that's true. And we're not saying, that not to get professional help or not to take medication if that's needed
No,
or
absolutely
anything.
not. Yeah, for sure.
But it definitely is interesting, and studies have shown that it can help, and it can actually help reduce the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And I don't know, I mean, it's probably a combination of things. But you take, for example, just with any exercise, the endorphins that are released, or doing that heavy cardio, which can get rid of, high levels of cortisol and stress and stuff in the body. And so there's that, but then and I'm not sure how much do you think, like the breathing and meditation component of it, affects your health as well, your mental health. But I'm sure
Absolutely.
it does a lot.
Yeah. I think so, for sure. I think that it's such an easy to overlook aspect of it all. I mean, but breath is literally life, and you can have if you never focus on that, you're really, it's like running a vehicle with just like the worst quality fuel that you can put in it. I mean, so if you don't pay attention to how the systems of the body work, and one of the most important being the respiratory system, I mean, then they're all interrelated. So obviously it's an important component. So breath work, I think, focused on just individually aside from things is a really important study. It's a really important practice. When you see the benefits of it, everything from healing benefits, from like you were talking about, like as far as how the brain releases different hormones and chemicals, and also suppresses different chemicals in your body, and a lot of that is just related simply to the breath work and the intention placed on that. So I think it's crucial to pay attention to that during physical practice, and also during still practice. It's funny, a friend of mine was telling me the other day, he's been reading some things on breath work, and he was mentioning that he's like, if you ever like read something or really been focused on something, like you're just reading a book, sitting still reading a book, and then like you're so focused on it that when you finish the passage that you're reading, that you take a breath, almost as if you were physically exerting yourself in that moment. And that alone tells you that what's happening inside you as far as the mind body kind of connection like that. So it is interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah. And you mentioned like Asperger's. I've also read that it can help with ADHD or just focus problems in general, because like you alluded to earlier, if you're not entirely focused, you're gonna get your butt kicked pretty quick.
Absolutely.
So you have to stay focused, and that for sure would carry over into other areas of life as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it teaches you what focus is. I think that I think that it's a very misleading thing sometimes whenever people think focus. If I tell somebody to focus, then whatever I tell them to focus on, they're going to look at it harder. They're going to try to like still their body and point their body in that direction. That's not necessarily that's just scratching the surface of what it means to be focused. Focused is not pulled in a whole bunch of different directions. And a lot of times that's what happens with ADD and ADHD, is that all the stimuli all around us, there's the filter is It works differently. It's not damaged or broken. It just works differently. And so I've seen that with the physical component to be a very helpful thing to really kind of channel it. It helps to put that filter in a more functional working order, so that you can focus on the things you need to focus on. And, I've seen that be very beneficial to people. A lot of times people come in with their kids, especially, but I've worked with adults too, dealing with ADD, ADHD. I think that, I don't think it's speaking out of turn to say it's overdiagnosed these days.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in with a 5-year-old and says, he's got ADD and ADHD and a hyperactive disorder and all that, I'm like, he's 5.
Yeah.
He's a normal 5-year-old. He's going to have a lot of energy. He's going to be distracted by all this stuff going on, and not to say that there's not like legitimate medical conditions of that. And in some cases they can benefit from medication and everything else. But, let's look from the holistic side first. Let's see what we can do naturally, because things are overdiagnosed because people need labels. I need to know what's wrong with me. I need to know what is this thing that's wrong with me. Okay, I can put a label on it and I can wear that like a name tag so I can tell people about it. Now I have a new identity. Now I have this new feature of myself. And it's just, and I'm not trying to be cruel or harsh when I'm saying that, but I think that is a condition of modern society. That's what millennials get condemned with now. Whenever people are like, oh, these damn millennials, and this, and what they're talking about, I think a lot of the time is that aspect of, I need to have these identifying features, and I need people to pay attention to me. I need people to sympathize with me, and it's just a form of searching for an empathetic connection, I think for a lot of people, but it's going a weird way about it.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is just kind of like the introspection that happens with martial arts, because if you're not always taking a look at ways that you need to improve, or if you're doing something wrong over and over again, you're going to pay for that in a very painful way. And so it's like that humility, that you have to have in martial arts would carry over to all aspects of life as well.
Yeah, it definitely should when it works right. I think, when it's kind of cliche to say, leave your ego at the door. You don't come in and train with an ego, and people are misusing the intention behind that a lot of the time. Everybody has an ego. Everybody is self-centered. We have to be. It's a normal thing. It's a functional thing from like just from a survival standpoint. We have to be egotistical to a degree. We have to, but it's understanding the nature of it. I think what the intention behind that statement or those kind of statements actually is that if you get too wrapped up in, I have to be the best at this, I have to do this, I have to perform to this level, I have to compare myself to other people, and I have to be better than they are, then you learn really quickly that that's going to be a very painful existence, and martial arts kind of brings that to the surface, because you can be a competitor and you can be competitive, but there's always someone better. I'm a second degree black belt, and I'm fully aware that there are purple and brown belts out there who can tap me out on the mat, and if I let that keep me up at night, then I'm going to have a lot of sleepless nights, and I think anybody being honest with themselves will be that. But it can also be a full thing to realize that that really drives home the concept of it's not about the goal. You have to have goals along the way, but if it's like this final destination that you're trying to reach, you're never really going to reach it. But it's okay to still have that, because it helps the trajectory of the journey that you're going to take. And I think that can be a really beautiful thing and a very motivating thing, so I think it's important for people to have that aspect of their training,
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a minute about like how it helps with self-esteem. Have you, as a coach, seen, some transformations that have been made an impact on you with either kids or youth that you've coached, or even adults?
Oh, for sure. I've it's great to see people who are very introverted come out of their shell, because then now they have a new form of expression they didn't know that existed before. Um, we used to have we've used over the years at different times, we've used a kind of a motto for our place that awaken your potential, and I really liked that one a lot. Not because it has a very positive sounding connotation to it, but it's not necessarily. It's it's revealing. It's about a revelation process. You find out some things about yourself when you train martial arts, and they're not all good. A lot of them are very negative things. You learn, oh, I didn't know that about myself, whenever you're training. And you learn a lot of things about other people. Some of the it's really hard to be deceptive when you're doing that kind of training. When you're live rolling with somebody and you're live wrestling with somebody, you develop kind of an ability to you're communicating. It's a nonverbal sense of communication, and you really start to learn a lot about that person through their movement, through their energy, and how they're conducting themselves. As far as how that applies to self-esteem, you really find people who sometimes are loud and boisterous and robust, about their existence. They're a lot of times they're masking something. There's a lot of times there's it's a defense mechanism. The same way that the person who's very introverted and shy and seemingly scared of their own shadow is, also they're putting up an armor around them. And so I think martial arts really helps to, when, functional practical martial arts study should help to reveal that to that person. Now, what they do with that information is kind of up to them at that point. And, that's when the therapeutic aspect of martial arts can really kick in. But again, the practice is, you have to have a very careful and particular practice. If you don't, you can be very damaging about what you do with that practice. If you want to beat something out of yourself that you don't like about yourself, then good luck. It's going to be like cutting off a limb. If you want to kind of exercise some demons, then that's a different story. That can happen. I've seen it happen a lot, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Is there any story of somebody that stands out to you?
Yeah, one that pops into mind, I'd probably come up with 50 of these, but one that pops into my mind, and probably because I was just discussing it recently, was I had a student that was not a physical guy. I don't know that he's ever done anything physical before he started training in jiu-jitsu, and this gave him a physical outlet, and it was very good for him. And he gained a lot of confidence through it. He felt pretty good about himself. He had been training maybe a couple of years, and was feeling pretty good, and handling himself well on the mats whenever he was sparring and rolling. He went off to university, and they had a jiu-jitsu club there, and he felt pretty good about himself. He was a blue belt at the time, which is your second belt, a couple of years of training. I think, though, the mentality, though, whenever he stepped into that training environment was, oh, well, I'll have an easy time with these guys, because these guys are just some guys that randomly get together and train and try to figure stuff out. I have more of a formal setting, training, academic approach to this, and I'll go in there and kind of be okay. And he went in, and these guys were very athletic, and they gave him a very hard time, and he came back a little crestfallen. I don't understand. These guys, they haven't trained as long as I have. They haven't done this as long. They don't know as much as I do.
Yeah.
It's you can't discount nature. You can't discount size as strength and athleticism. Those things are all very important. And my statement to him was, man, imagine how badly you would have done before jiu-jitsu. Before you trained, you would have had no chance. At least you were able to kind of fight and defend yourself and deal with some of this energy. Even though they got the better of you, they would have mauled you before.
Yeah.
So it's relative. It's a relative thing. And it kind of, I think that the healthy dose of realism is one of the biggest things that you can get from it. not a feeling of superiority, not a feeling of inferiority if you need to be knocked down a few notches, but it's that realistic thing that it offers you, like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who do you feel like has maybe had the most influence on you in your life? I mean, I'm sure there's like a billion people you can name, but
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
stands
Well,
out to you?
it again, I mentioned Jason Hawkins before,
Mm-hmm.
he, and again, knowing him for so long and going through being a kid and kind of mentoring after him as a teacher and, at times a father figure, at times a brother,
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's absolutely brilliant in all of his studies. He's extremely well read, extremely well versed in a lot of different areas, martial arts just being one of them. But,
Mm-hmm.
I mentored after him for so long, that I don't know what my identity would be separate from knowing him. So that
Mm-hmm.
to me shows that he's probably overwhelmingly my biggest influence. Yeah, I can name a lot of different influences that I've had.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Hoist Gracie, obviously, because I would not be doing the kind of martial arts that I'm doing now to this day,
Mm-hmm.
and with the perspective that I'm training, if it weren't for him and what his family has done. But yeah, that'd be the biggest one to me would be Jason Hawkins. So.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
What are some tips that you tell people, or like some mindset mantras or different things that are helpful to you and that you share with other people?
um, I think a lot of it depends on what their goals are. I think that's the first thing is you really have to kind of know yourself. You have to develop a practice that's self-revealing and
Mm-hmm.
that to really formulate what you want to do. People come in a lot of the time with reasons that they want to start training, and um, rarely is it the case that those reasons don't change after they begin training. They
Mm-hmm.
may come in, they want to fight, they want to compete, they want to just learn self-defense, they just want to develop a hobby, whatever the case is. And I think that depending on what their perceived and actualized goals are, well, that'll be revealed later. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
learning that is important, and then working with a competent teacher. Not to be too fooled or duped into someone who is just impressive. Just because someone is impressive in their abilities does not necessarily mean that they're going to be a good coach or teacher or someone for you to study under. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen world class fighters and competitors and exemplary people in martial arts in different ways that they can't convey that information. They can't. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you're studying something, you need to have someone good that's going to be able to teach you that. uh, people tell me that I'm a good teacher sometimes. They tell me I'm a good coach sometimes. um, and I believe that I have some good elements to me that make me a good instructor. Um, but at the same time, um, I'm not the greatest fighter or competitor in the world. There's much better guys out there than I am that I can teach better than. So that's going to be more beneficial to the student. I would say find a good, safe facility to train in. To follow your practice. And if you don't have that, at least find good peers that have your best interest in mind whenever you're training with that person. Someone
Mm-hmm.
who is going to be conducive to your learning and to your development and your progress and your improvement in the most positive ways. It's not about just learning something that's going to make you able to kick the average person's ass. It's about
Mm-hmm.
learning, how to conduct yourself better as a person and making yourself safer and healthier and happier ultimately. So
Yeah.
that's
That's awesome. What projects do you have coming up right now? Are you working on anything that you're especially passionate about?
yeah. I just doing more of the same, but I've been doing a lot of seminars, even more seminars lately, and so
Are
that's
these online seminars or are they in
no.
person?
In person, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
just last weekend I was in Alexandria, Virginia, teaching a seminar out there. I actually did a podcast out there with those guys called the Fight Philosophy Podcast. And before that, I was in where was I? Florida, Before that, I was in Oromocto, Canada, up there with JD, and teaching a seminar at a jiu-jitsu school up there, and then at a boxing club. And so I really like to show people all the different facets of jiu-jitsu. And like I taught a couple of seminars recently at boxing gyms and on clinch fighting and how jiu-jitsu can apply to that. And so it's a little outside the box for people to think about, but it was an interesting topic, and it really, I think that aside from them learning, I learned something every time that I go to teach somewhere. So that's been interesting to me. I have a seminar coming up this weekend in Farmington, Missouri, and but as far as projects coming up, I'm still working with the Budo brothers, and I'm hoping that early next year we finalize a project that's been in the works for several months now. We did some filming up there, and we're gonna do some filming here in Kentucky where I am, and I'm really excited about how that project is going to turn out, because they do like really amazing work. Their filming, their editing is awesome, and then they hopefully that's going to give a really good like way to convey the information as far as how they present it. That'll be like a digital seminar they're going to release. And then I filmed with BJJ Fanatics that puts out a lot of DVD instructionals, and I have an instructional set that was released with them a few months ago, and I'm actually headed up there in a few weeks to do another maybe one or two other volumes to that. So I'm excited about those projects coming out. Other than that, just teaching my classes here, my private lessons, and doing my YouTube videos and my Patreon videos, and things, staying busy.
Yeah, that sounds good. JD was telling me that he looked a little bit bald in the videos that you guys did, and he thinks you stole his hair or something. Do you have any tips for keeping your hair? My husband's bald too.
I don't know, because like I've been very fortunate to keep my follicular structure intact over the years, and I don't know. But my advice to JD was, man, just shave it already, dude. Just don't hang on past its prime, and just if it's it's just been trying to get him to shave his head forever. I'm like, just bite the bullet, man. Just do it.
Yeah,
that's what I would do, I think. So
that's what my husband did, and he did it early on in our marriage, and I wasn't too happy about it then, but I can see why he did it. In fact, it was funny, for Halloween, his company dressed up, and he had a costume, but he didn't end up putting it on because this other guy shaved his head to look like my husband.
Oh, no.
So
that's hilarious.
It was pretty funny, yeah.
That's pretty
Anyways,
cool.
Well, any other, are you like a real healthy guy with different health practices? Like, what would you eat on a typical day for breakfast, for example?
I'm not going to lie and say that I'm like super careful and healthy in my diet. I try to eat clean. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think my dietary practices and advice for people, I think that people get too tied up in fads, I think, a lot of time with dieting, and the fads are there for a reason. I think that there are some, there's a lot to learn from like nutrition and dietetics from a lot of the fads that resurface over the years. But I think that there's the personalized component of nutrition and dietetics is the thing that's most overlooked. People read about, oh, this diet is really good for this, or this diet's really good for that. It's like, well, you can take the healthiest foods in the world, and if your body doesn't like those foods, it's like, okay, what's something? I think avocado is probably one of the healthiest things you can put in your body. Well, not for someone who's allergic to avocado, so it's, you'll find people who a vegan diet is the perfect thing for them, but it's not perfect for everyone. I don't believe that. I think that we have a long-standing, we've been on this planet for a while. We come from a lot of different geographical areas. We come from a lot of different biological makeups as far as, our ancestors and everything. So learning about yourself, learning what gives you the most energy, what sustains the practice that you have in your life. If I were a triathlete, I would eat very differently. Being a jiu-jitsu person, I know that if I'm going to have a very physical day of training and teaching, then there needs to be a certain amount of hours between when I eat and when I step on the mat to start. because I can't, that digestion process. If I eat something that's too heavy for me to, that takes a lot of energy for me to digest, because digestion is one of the most energy draining things that we can potentially do throughout our entire day. So if I put something that's going to be difficult for my body to, and take up a lot of energy for me to digest and cause me any kind of gastric distress or anything like that, that's going to really have an impact on every facet of me teaching or training of that day. And I'm not going to get the most out of it. My students aren't going to get the most out of it. So I try some weird things, I guess, that I do personally that have worked for me is I don't eat much early in the day. If I do eat, I usually don't eat cooked foods very much during the early part of the day, or hot things. This changes depending on the time of the year. I eat heavier in the evening after I've done the physical part of my day. If I've done something that's a little more like strength training, then I try to up the protein more that day. I don't ascribe to you need a gram of protein per pound of body weight or per kilogram of body weight or something like that throughout the day. I don't know. I know what I feel like when I ingest too much of certain things, and I try to avoid feeling like that. That's the biggest thing for me. I ingest way too much caffeine. Shouldn't do that, but I think everything in moderation is that's really kind of the thing. I think avoiding excessive things. I think that avoiding things that are things that are overly processed, have too many ingredients in them, that you don't know where the hell this stuff is coming from that they put into it. The big rage right now is, I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend about this, the Impossible burger. A lot of vegetarians and vegans love this Impossible thing that Burger King is putting out and it's basically just a meatless, I don't know if it's soy-based, vegetable-based. There's so much stuff in that though. Just because it's vegan doesn't make it healthy. Just because it's vegetarian doesn't make it healthy. Just because it's gluten-free doesn't make it healthy. Removing one bad thing from something with 50 bad things in it doesn't necessarily make it healthy. So it's overwhelming though, because especially as much as I travel, if I'm going to eat somewhere and everybody wants to go out to eat and I have to travel and eat stuff on the road, then it's difficult for me to really pay very close attention to it. But I just try to, I've got a few staple things that I know are going to be pretty safe. And then, like I said, I'll watch the timing of what I eat, when, and how much, and then try to drink a ton of water. I think it's that's the biggest thing that people miss out on. And people probably drink more water now than ever, but they're still, it's really hard to drink too much water.
Yeah. What about would we ever see you doing a yoga routine or anything, or do you change up your workout to something totally different to work on other aspects of your fitness?
It does. It depends what my schedule is like. Lately, with as much travel as I've had to do, it's been easier for me to do more kind of traditional strength training and weightlifting. And so I've been doing that a lot more lately than anything like yoga. But I've been around yoga, most all my training life. It's we started back in the early 2000s doing Ashtanga yoga, and I was really fascinated with that for a number of years, and I'll still kind of go back and revisit that from time to time, but I don't make it as regimented of a practice as to say I do yoga. So I think that that's yoga, in my opinion, is one of the best solo practices that you can do to benefit your jiu-jitsu training. Oftentimes in jiu-jitsu, we call jiu-jitsu involuntary yoga. So I think that whenever you do voluntary yoga, it helps to impact your jiu-jitsu training. So, there are certain things that I think that are more conducive to the jiu-jitsu lifestyle and developing a body that's more equipped to handle that kind of training, versus if you were going to do boxing or kickboxing, let's say, or if you're, you don't want to do something that's going to make you too bulky and tighten your muscles. You want to do something that's going to kind of allow you to keep a malleability and a flexibility to you that's going to help you to function a little better in that environment. And I think that's ultimately a healthier way to go about it. a lot of times people want to, especially guys, we want to bulk up and we have nice beach muscles, So I think that some guys take that to the extreme, and especially because we're inside of a gym here. We're inside of like a fitness center. And so I see, a lot of the guys like just jacked guys walking around downstairs. I think, man, it's overweight is overweight. Whether you're 300 pounds of muscle or 300 pounds of fat, you're going to have health issues either way if you're, 6 feet tall or less. That it's, that was a bit of a tangent there, but it's as far as, healthy dieting and nutrition and everything like that goes, and working out, I think that it should focus on what you're doing. Again, I would have a very different workout routine if I were a marathon runner than I do as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, Well,
cool. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us today. We're excited. Is there anything that you'd like us to throw in the show notes or link up to for you? Or how can people reach you? Obviously, we'll link up to your YouTube channel.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Basically, when you type in Knight Jiu-Jitsu like that on any of the socials, I'll probably pop up. So on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube, obviously. My Patreon channel is patreon.com/Knight Jiu-Jitsu. So all those different ways. And I put different content on different channels and different media outlets and stuff, and so that's the way that people can typically follow me versus just going on a website somewhere, because I try to post about upcoming seminars and where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be focused on, and then if I have any projects coming out, I put those on those different channels, like on Instagram and Patreon especially, and then on my YouTube channel.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Well, we're excited to get this out, and we really appreciate your time. So you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much for having me on.